No matter which culture, which country, which society you've been raised in, we've all been taught the same thing: to treat people the way we want to be treated, also known as the Golden Rule. Well, the Golden Rule is a load of shit. No, don't even censor it. Bring it back. Well, the Golden Rule is a load of shit. So we should just call it the fecal rule, because it is literally gold-plated shit. What did I say about censoring? And it's a load of shit, there we go, because it's based on a false sense of reciprocity. A false sense of reciprocity between you and the other person, and between you and the way society works. And we always have to be very wary of anything, any principle, any rule, fecal or not, that is based on reciprocity, because reciprocity makes us oblivious to reality. Reciprocity is based on an expectation, not an obligation, and not even a responsibility, just an expectation. And an expectation is a guaranteed form of disappointment. And it's what causes so many women to just continue running in this hamster wheel. Because when you're operating based on expectations, you've given up all your power, and you've put that power into something that's completely out of your hands, which is other people's behavior. Now that is a load of shit. And let me tell you this before I tell the DJ to cue up the theme song. The fecal rule is a very sneaky way to trick women, to bamboozle us into performing emotional labor, and even into becoming pick-me's and victimellas, because it invites projection. All right, now DJ, you can hit the theme song. The Golden Rule. Honestly, what a load of shit. So the reason the Golden Rule is a load of shite is because it's rooted in morality. And if you've listened to this show long enough, you'll know that me and morality are not friends, because morality, it's not some divinely ordained thing that fell out of the sky. Most morality is made up by men in the form of religion, in the form of laws, penal codes, because they wanted to get a penal code, but they had to invent all these things to make them look super alpha. So morality is man-made. And you know what? My relationship with morality is so strained that when I was writing my book, as you probably know, my book, How to Hack the Patriarchy, is my first 20 girly laws of power, updated and revised. When I was writing it, I actually swapped laws 1 and 2. On the show, law 1 is don't be humble. Law 2 is stop being guided by right and wrong. I swapped those so that in my book, patriarchy hack number 1 is stop being guided by right and wrong. Now, going back to the fecal rule, every religion has a variation of this rule. So that should be our first red flag. If a religion is telling you to do something, you should probably do the opposite. Now, speaking of religion, if you strip the fecal rule down to its core, you will find a superstition, which is, if I act fairly, then I'll be treated fairly. Again, if you've read my book, you know that I have 6 superstitions that the patriarchy has groomed into women. One of the biggest ones is, if I act fairly, I'll be treated fairly. And that is based on a false sense of reciprocity with the world. You think that you're going to get back whatever you give out. So if you act fair in this unfair world, somehow, by some miracle, you're going to be treated with fairness. And that's just clown behavior. I'm so sorry. And that is a load of shit. Oh, also, hi, anyone who's new here. My name is Nikki. I am your host. I am the baddest bitch in the building. Not to be confused with you, who's also the baddest bitch in the building. And this is a show where we discuss how to exploit the patriarchy's loopholes. And this show was one of the fastest growing and most shared podcasts on Spotify in 2025. And my book, How to Hack the Patriarchy, recently became a #1 bestseller on Amazon. I got to use my own girly laws of power. Number one or two, based on where you're seeing it, don't be humble. So the girlies like what they see and hear and read from me. Anyway, back to the fecal rule. Reciprocity is basically just an expectation with no follow up or obligation. You're not signing a contract, there's no legally binding clause obligating the other person to reciprocate. You're simply operating based on an expectation and based on control and power that you've put in somebody else's hands because you're relying on their behavior. And the thing is, we all want the best for ourselves, right? We don't want to be treated like crap. So when we operate based on this fecal rule, we invite projection. And projection is one of the easiest ways to make us completely oblivious to reality. Projection is the way we cloud our judgment and we cloud our perception of what's right in front of us. Projection is the reason why so many people take everything so personally. It's the reason why people will go out of their way to put down others. It's literally the reason why so many men are incels and misogynists. So many things that people do, say, and believe are clouded by their own projection. And when we have this moral principle of treating people the way we want to be treated, we have this very dangerous glorification of projection. And I say it's dangerous because a narcissist or a manipulator or an abuser wants you to operate like that. Because when you operate based on projection and based on something stupid, like treat others the way you want to be treated, you are predictable and you're easily controllable. And because you're operating based on projection and based on, oh, well, if I were in their shoes, I would do that. Or if I were on the receiving end, I would want to be treated like this. Because you're operating like that, you're more likely to give them a bunch of undeserved chances when they inevitably screw up or treat you poorly. So for a person with bad intentions, this principle is like the golden cop out. Aside from being a form of projection, the fecal rule is also a form of emotional labor. Because, again, and this is rooted in that projection, you think, oh, well, if I just treat them like this because that's how I want to be treated, if I give them enough chances, if I'm just gentle enough with them, then I'll be able to fix them. Then they'll be able to see the light. Girl, you literally sound like a street preacher telling people to go find Jesus because they're operating based on projection too. And this misguided belief that we can fix people, like I said, it's a form of emotional labor and it's a way of sucking us into an energy vacuum. I discussed the concept of an energy vacuum in, I can't remember which episode it was, but I think it was the one about how to stop over explaining yourself. And basically, what is a vacuum? Class, what's a vacuum? It's a space devoid of any matter. There's nothing there. So an energy vacuum is a situation or a relationship that sucks your energy out because there was nothing there to begin with. Because you're out there trying to fix people when they don't want to be fixed or they don't want you to put in the effort of being the savior. So you're sucking yourself into an energy vacuum by performing all this unsolicited emotional labor. And obviously, it's not entirely your fault because as women, we've been conditioned to think we have to take care of everyone, to put everyone's needs before our own, to be the glue that holds everything together. But again, that is the biggest form of emotional labor, and that is the ultimate energy vacuum. So cut it out. And on a related note, the fecal rule also makes us engage in wishful thinking and basically begging. Again, because of this projection where you think, oh, if I were in their shoes, I would appreciate my efforts. If I were in their shoes, I would recognize and acknowledge all of my hard work. Because you're operating based on this projection and this false sense of reciprocity, you're more likely to engage in wishful thinking. For example, at a job where you're just working, and in the hopes that someone will recognize your efforts. Because you think to yourself, Oh, eventually they'll recognize me. Oh, eventually they'll see how hard I'm working and they'll promote me. You think maybe if you were the manager and you were in charge of promoting people, that you'd recognize if somebody was working as hard as you. But guess what? You're not the manager. So you're operating based on wishful thinking. And in a way, you're literally begging to be recognized. So to recap everything I've just said, be very wary of any principle that's based on reciprocity. Because reciprocity is based on an expectation, not to be confused with an obligation or a responsibility. And so you've put all your power into the hands of somebody else because you're relying on their behavior and on other fickle things like their mood and their disposition and whether or not they notice you're working late and whether or not they even want to promote you to begin with. Maybe you look like their ex who ruined their life and slashed their tires and they don't want to promote you because your face pisses them off. Who knows? But when you're operating based on expectations and reciprocity and projection, you've let go of all the power you had. You've made yourself powerless willingly. That's the crazy thing. It's willingly. Like, so many people act like they don't have free will. Again, the conditioning and the grooming that's been instilled in us from the time we were girls plays a role in it. But now that you've listened to this part of the episode, you don't even have to listen to the whole thing, just up until here. If you listen to this, you have no excuse now. Because now you know, now you've snapped out of the trance that the social conditioning and the patriarchal conditioning has put you in. Now you have no excuse. You can't, don't even lie to yourself. Don't try to backtrack. It's too late. I've done you a favor. There's a gap between how you're currently being treated and how you want to be treated, whether it's in a relationship, a friendship, a professional work setting, whatever it may be. And what's preventing that gap from closing is effort. But not effort from the other person, effort from you, because you are doing too much. You didn't see that coming. See, this is why if anyone calls me an influencer instead of a philosopher, I'm actually going to be pissed. So, everybody has a sense of grandiosity, which is an inflated sense of our own self-importance. Not to be confused with narcissism. Grandiosity is something that we all experience to varying extents. And the majority of us have low-grade grandiosity. And this is a concept I came across in Robert Greene's book, The Laws of Human Nature. Great book. He's the author of the 48 Laws of Power, which was one of the biggest influences in my own work. I highly recommend The Laws of Human Nature. And when he discusses this low-grade grandiosity, he basically says that everyone has some baseline level of wanting to feel important, wanting to have attention, not just being another person among the 8 billion people on this earth. We want to feel superior to others in some way. When I say you're doing too much and you're preventing this effort gap from closing, there are a few detrimental things that you're causing when you're out here doing way too much. The first thing, and this is not in any particular order, the first thing is you're setting the bar too high. Because when you come right out the gate trying to impress somebody and giving everything, giving your all, you've set the bar way too high. And you've set the precedent that this is now the level of effort that they expect from you. And that's why I have a whole girly law of power, number 15, dedicated to this. Let people underestimate you. Another detrimental byproduct of you doing too much is that you're triggering people's grandiosity, especially if said person is a man. And there's a time and a place to trigger someone's ego, to stroke it, and to use their ego to get what you want. That is one of the base pillars of my philosophy. However, people are very quick to forget what you did for them, especially if you're going out of your way to do this big gesture or you're inconveniencing yourself to help them out with something, whatever it is. when you're triggering someone's sense of grandiosity, they're going to be super quick to forget what you did, and they're going to remove you from the equation altogether. They will remove you from the equation as if you never existed in the first place. And the best example that comes to mind is how so many women have falling outs after weddings, especially if they were in the bridal party. I was recently catching up with one of my girlfriends who was telling me about how she had a falling out with one of her friends who recently got married. Her and one of her other friends both had to end their friendship with this bride after the wedding because of the fact that she had gotten to a point of being so entitled, so self centered, so grandiose in her expectations of her friends that she was shaming friends for not being able to make minor commitments. She was shaming friends for making plans among themselves without her. She was completely unappreciative of the fact that these women took time off of work to travel, not only for her wedding, but for her bachelorette, and acted like she was owed 2 weeks of time off and thousands of dollars in travel expenses. And my friend and her other friend came to the conclusion that they just couldn't be friends with this person anymore because she's just such an inconsiderate, entitled, grandiose person. And this story is one I've heard so many times. So many times. It's one I experienced as well. If you listen to my story about my friend who brought me that really crappy gift to my birthday party, I call her Anastasia, named after one of Cinderella's ugly stepsisters. But that wasn't as extreme as this version. But I'm at the age now where a lot of my friends are getting married and a lot of my friends' are getting married. So I've heard so many stories about falling outs, so many of them. And my theory is that because we all have both this sense of insignificance, but also this low grade grandiosity within us, once a person gets a taste of what it's like to be the center of attention, to be superior to others, to have people at their beck and call, and to have that kind of power, they don't want to let go of that. An experience like that, for example, being a bride, awakens something in them that's very difficult to quell after the fact, after a wedding, for example. So when you're out here doing way too much for people, your effort is actually channeling that person's grandiose energy inward. It's basically like what religion did for men. Because and this is an example from one of my other friends who had a falling out with her bride friend, she went out of her way to plan the entire bachelorette trip, this week-long trip that took a lot of time and effort to plan. The bride didn't ask for her to do this, but my friend did it anyway because she wanted to make the bride's trip special and she wanted to take something off of her plate. And after everything happened, the trip was over, the wedding was over, not even a thank you. She acted like she was completely entitled to this. And yes, they had a falling out. But that shows that that amount of effort can trigger someone who had that low grade grandiosity, whose sense of grandiosity is growing, and make them feel like they were entitled to that effort. And your effort when you're out here doing too much is a key factor in the earning to entitlement pipeline. Because these people go from feeling like they earned your effort to feeling like they were entitled to it. And you know what pipeline you weren't part of? The onus to anus pipeline. Like I always say, be an anus and shift the onus. When you're out here doing way too much and not closing that effort gap, you're actually putting the onus on yourself and making yourself look like an anus. So bringing this back to the false sense of reciprocity I was mentioning earlier, a lot of us put in all this effort for our friend, our partner, whoever it may be, because we think that it'll be reciprocated when our time comes. Just because you saw your friend putting in all that effort and you're going to reciprocate when the time comes and you're going to make them feel appreciated and valued, doesn't mean they're going to do that for you. So again, this is another example of your projection clouding reality and making you oblivious to it. And it's also that reciprocity keeping you running in this hamster wheel, thinking that you're going to get this reward that's actually probably never going to materialize. And one of the things we're most oblivious to is that when people are under stress or if they come into a position of power, they don't change who they are. They just show their true colors because a layer of their mask comes off. When you're stressed, when you've ascended to a higher position at work or to the status of a bride or whatever it may be, a layer of your mask has come off. And now people are able to see a more raw, unfiltered version of you. So people don't change under stress. They don't change under power. They just show who they really are. Now, if the fecal rule is to treat people the way you want to be treated, what in tarnation is the golden rule? The problem with the fecal rule, as if I haven't already mentioned like 900 problems with this stupid fuck ass rule, but one of the big problems for this rule is that not everybody wants to be treated the way that you want to be treated, and not everyone should be treated the way you want to be treated. So, to replace the fecal rule, I have 4 golden rules, or let's call it something different. Let's call it the platinum rules, okay? I have 4 of them. Treat people how they want to be treated. Treat people how they deserve to be treated. Treat people based on the outcome you want. And treat people how you don't want to be treated. And these all come with closing the effort gap. So I'll discuss each of these platinum rules individually. So the first one is treat people how they want to be treated. In this case, you need to close the effort gap by not being clouded by projection. Okay? You need to understand, how is it that that person, my friend, my sister, my cousin, whoever it is, how does she want to be treated? It's not about putting in no effort. It's about putting in the right effort. So this requires a level of empathy and of putting yourself in their shoes to see what it is that they want. Not what it is that you think they want, but what is it that they truly want. And sometimes you could literally ask them. But it also helps to read people. You have to get better at reading other people, understanding how much grandiosity they might have. You got to get a little grandiosity meter and get a reading for how big their sense of self-importance is. If they grew up really spoiled and pampered, chances are they probably have a very high level of grandiosity. If they grew up living in a sewer, then maybe it's a different story. Or maybe they do have a big sense of grandiosity because they're overcompensating for something. So it's really important to take it case by case, read people, understand them, and understand that empathy comes from truly knowing the other person without clouding your own judgment and understanding by your own projections. And it also bears mentioning here not to do anything with the expectation of gratitude. This is an Easter egg for Girly Loft Power number 35, which is coming up in a few weeks. But I'll leave it on this note. Understand when you're doing something out of niceness, which is performative. Doing something because it's nice is basically a way of maintaining social harmony and meeting the expectations that have been placed on you. It's not genuine. The opposite of niceness is kindness. When you're acting out of kindness, you're acting out of empathy. You're doing that thing because you genuinely want to. When we're doing things with the expectation of gratitude, it's performative. We're performing an act so that we get appreciated or recognized for it later, and hopefully so we get it reciprocated at a future time. And that's a stupid way of going about things. It's stupid. All right? I won't say too much more because Girly Loft Power number 35 is gonna help me win that. Okay? The second platinum rule is treat people how they deserve to be treated. This is more so for people who don't have a close, intimate relationship with you, maybe it's a coworker, a friend who's a little bit more distant from you, a toxic family member, someone you have to see every once in a while, someone you have to have a relationship with, and you need to set firm boundaries with them. So this platinum rule is more so for people who are at arm's length from you. So just like in the first rule, I mentioned how you have to read people and understand what they truly want. For this rule, you have to look at people's behavior and the way they've treated you and use that as data. Girly law of power number 25, treat excuses as data. This is super important because people will show you exactly how they deserve to be treated. And you can either accept that information or you can make excuses for them and be oblivious to it. Remember that no one does something just once. If they've done it once, they've done it 100 times. And you have to be smart about this because you have to understand what's part of their character versus what's part of their behavior. If someone shows you their true colors and shows you what's part of their character, who they are, that's not going to change. And you can't try to waste your time changing them because then you'll be in an energy vacuum. However, if someone exhibits a janky behavior and a behavior is something that can be changed, then that's a different story. Look at what's in front of you. Stop making excuses for people and treat people how they deserve to be treated. Be firm with your boundaries. Be firm with what you're willing to give, the currency that you're willing to give in that relationship, whether it's a friendship, a professional relationship, a strained family relationship, whatever it is, and be firm on those things. The third rule is treat people based on the outcome you want. This mostly applies to coworkers, people you know in a professional capacity, and dating, especially in the earlier stages of dating when you're setting precedents and training the guy to be a good boy. And this might sound selfish, it might sound diabolical, and that's because you've probably been conditioned very deeply to glorify being a martyr, to glorify putting yourself last and being of service to people. You probably think that the purpose of a relationship, and I don't just mean a romantic relationship, but you probably think a relationship is based on what you can give the other person and how you can be of service to others, because that's where you get your worth from. And to keep with the theme of this episode, that is a load of shit. Every relationship you have should be benefiting you in some kind of way. And if you're not putting yourself first, then you're putting yourself last. That's all I'm going to say. And you cannot afford to play fair in an unfair world. So in certain relationships, especially professional ones, you have to be guided by a goal. A goal is an antidote to expectations. So instead of going into a job like Victimella would and thinking, oh, if I work hard enough and I work overtime enough and they see me and they see how hard I'm working, they're going to promote me after a while, right? No. You have to go in with a concrete goal. I'm going to work here for 2 years. At the 8-month mark, I'm going to go speak to my manager and see which goals I need to set so I can get a promotion within 6 months from that conversation. If they don't promote me within that 6-month window, then I'll stay a little bit longer so I can find another job, and then I'm going to leave. You need to be firm with your goals. Sorry, I sound so scary right now, but it's because I care about y'all. I care about you baddies, and I want the best for all of you. And that's why I'm telling you this. And you might not might not want to hear some of the things I have to say. But I'm going to tell it to you anyway because I don't want to sugarcoat it, okay? And the fourth rule, treat people how you don't want to be treated. This one is super counterintuitive, but hear me out. This applies to dating men. Unfortunately, this only applies to people who have this disease called heterosexuality, where we're attracted to straight men. So I know it's a terminal illness and we can't really do anything about it. So if any of you baddies have tips for queer relationships, please drop them in the comments, because obviously as someone afflicted with the illness of heterosexuality, I can't speak to that. But with men and dating, you don't want to be treated the way the man wants to be treated. Okay, let me tell you from now, there can only be one. There can only be one princess and one ogre. So you're either going to be treated like the princess or you're going to be treated like the ogre. So take your pick. And a lot of people are like, oh, but gender roles are so toxic and they're repackaged patriarchy. Gender roles are only repackaged patriarchy if they subjugate you and put you in a position of having less power and put you in a position of undermining your independence and making you dependent on a man. The gender roles that I talk about are all rooted in the fact that, first of all, as humans, we are matriarchal. So women are the ones who lead and have true power. And second of all, the gender roles I describe are also based on psychology and human nature. And they're based on how you can trigger a person's ego, a person's psychology, their psyche, their demeanor to get what you want and to build a harmonious relationship with them. So in no way am I repackaging patriarchy, but you're free to do whatever you want in your own relationships. Anyway, back to this rule. Men, true men, not the ones who just can't accept that they're closeted or the ones who have to show how alpha they are, but true men who want to uplift women, want to be good boys. Men by nature are submissive to women. They don't want to admit it, but they are. And that's why you see so many men being submissive to other men, because they want to be submissive, but patriarchy conditions them into thinking that you're a simp or you're some kind of loser if you're submissive to a woman. So they take that submissive energy and channel it into other men. But true men who don't fight that and who actually channel that into being a good partner for a woman are good boys. And you don't want to be treated in the same way as a man. You want the man to take care of the bills? Great, then you don't do that. You want the man to drive you places? Great, then you don't do that. You want the man to text you good morning? Great, you don't do that. Whatever it is, treat them the way you don't want to be treated, because you have to create the space for them to actually be able to step up. If you're filling in all the gaps and doing too much, again, you're keeping that effort gap open, then you're pushing them away. And men, bless their hearts, they're so simple. They value things that they have to work for. Again, a lot of masculinity is about doing and achieving. So they value things they have to work for. They value things that they feel they can lose at any moment. So they have to be on good behavior. They got to be good boys. So you have to constantly be creating gaps and opportunities for them to do things, to put in effort. And a great complement to this is Girly Law of Power number 33, trigger people's need to prove themselves. So let's wrap this up. Those were my 4 platinum rules. If you have any other platinum rules, drop them down in the comments, because obviously I could have missed something. And if you're wondering how you should communicate how you want to be treated, the way you tell people how to treat you is based on the way you treat yourself. Because no one is going to treat you better than the way you treat yourself. And people take your lead on the way you treat yourself. If you hold yourself to a high standard, talk positively about yourself, never speak about yourself negatively. If you look put together, well taken care of, well groomed, well dressed, all of these things, this whole package that you are, that communicates to people how they should treat you. And it communicates what you will and won't tolerate. You're saying, I've put a lot of time, effort, and energy into developing unconditional love for myself and into building this version of myself who I'm extremely happy with. I've spent a lot of time and money into being well-dressed and well put together, and everything about you communicates effort and love and abundance and good energy. And people will see that and they'll either be intimidated and be like, okay, I can't even cross paths with her because I'm going to screw up and she's going to cut me off just like that. Or they're going to be like, you know what? I'm going to step up to the challenge. So choose how you want to be perceived and work backwards from that goal. The control is in your hands. Don't look at things like people's tendency to judge people's appearances and be like, oh my God, this is terrible. Is it shallow? Yes. Does it suck? It could, but use that to your advantage. That's why I'm here. And yes, this is part of my agenda to eradicate dad sneakers, because You're a girl. You can wear anything in this world. And you choose to dress like your dad? Like, are you kidding me? Anyway, baddies, I'm going to end the episode here. Stay tuned for my upcoming law number 35, which is going to be complementary to this one. And in the meantime, stay bad. And don't forget that you are the baddest bitch in any building that you step foot in. Until next time, stay bad. Love you. Bye.
All right, beef jerky time. That means it's time to run through all my shout outs. Get with the gibberish. All right, shout out to all the baddies supporting on Patreon. Shout out to Kate, Danny, Lindsay, Emberly, Brittany, Hannah, Nadine, Shara, Amanda, Adriana, Mina, Gemma, Katia, May, Naomi, Nilufar, Adelaide, Nadia, Faith, Melinda, Sophia M, Sophia K, Jada, Amara, and Kat. Thank you all so much for your support.
The golden rule. Honestly, what a load of shit.